alphabet of The Afterlife, Part 0, The Education of an Eye, a prequel, Chapter 1, Light, Age 7, The Attic. The dust motes were alive. That's what Tommy Henderson thought, watching them dance in the shaft of sunlight cutting through his grandmother's attic. They appeared from nowhere when they entered the light, vanished when they left it, like magic tricks performed by the air itself. "What are you doing up here, baby?" His grandmother's voice came from the stairs. She was 63, silver-haired, always smelling of lavender and darkroom chemicals. She climbed slowly, one hand on the railing, the other carrying her ever-present camera. Watching, Tommy said, "The light makes things visible." She came to stand beside him, following his gaze to the window. The sun was low, golden, turning ordinary dust into something precious. "You see it," she said softly. "Not everyone does." "Sees what?" "The way light changes everything. The way it creates truth and lies at the same time." She raised her camera, pointed it at the window. Light shows us what's there, but it also hides what it wants. Tommy watched her adjust the lens, frame the shot. The shutter clicked, once, twice, 3 times. "Can I see?" he asked. "Not yet. They're not developed." "Why do you take pictures of nothing?" His grandmother smiled. "It's not nothing. It's everything. The spaces between things matter as much as the things themselves." She lowered the camera, looked at him with eyes that were the same gray as his own. "Your mother thinks I'm wasting film. Says I should photograph people, events, moments that matter. But this," she gestured to the empty attic, "the dust, the light, this matters. Beauty that no one sees is still beauty." Tommy thought about that, about all the things that existed, whether anyone looked at them or not. "Can you teach me?" he asked. "To photograph, to see." His grandmother's smile widened. "Come with me." She led him to the corner of the attic where she kept her equipment. Boxes of film, developing trays, an enlarger that looked like a robot from the future, and cameras, so many cameras. "This was my first," she said, pulling out a Kodak Brownie. "Bakelite and dreams. Took terrible pictures, but I loved it anyway." She handed it to him. It was heavier than it looked, solid, real. "The first rule of photography," she said, "is that the camera doesn't matter. The eye matters. What you choose to see, what you choose to show." "What's the second rule?" "There are no other rules. Everything else is just technique, and technique can be learned." Tommy held the camera up to his eye. Through the viewfinder, the attic looked different. Framed, contained, manageable. "What do you see?" his grandmother asked. "The window, the light, the dust." "What else?" He looked harder. "Boxes, a chair, your shadow." "What else?" "I don't know. Look for what's missing. What's not there is as important as what is." Tommy lowered the camera, confused. His grandmother knelt beside him, her joints cracking. "In that frame, what's not there? What did you leave out?" You, he realized. I can see your shadow, but not you. Good, and what does that tell you? That you're behind me. That the light is coming from there. He pointed to the window. And that the photograph is a lie. Because it shows part of the truth, but not all of it. His grandmother's face broke into a wide smile. Yes, exactly yes. Every photograph is a choice. What to include, what to exclude, where to stand, when to press the shutter. Those choices create the story. And stories can be true or false, or something in between. She stood, bones protesting, and pulled out another camera. Newer, sleeker. This is a Pentax, 35 millimeter, more complicated, but better pictures. She showed him the settings: aperture, shutter speed, ISO. These control the light, how much gets in, how fast, how sensitive the film is. Tommy listened, absorbed. The technical language washed over him like poetry. Can I take a picture? Load the film first. She showed him how. The careful threading, the advance, the counter. Then she handed him the camera. What do you want to photograph? Tommy looked around the attic. So many choices, but his eyes kept returning to the window. The light. That, he said. Why? Because it changes. Every minute it's different. And if I don't photograph it now, it'll be gone. His grandmother nodded. The photographer's burden. Knowing that every moment is dying. That your job is to catch it before it disappears. Tommy raised the camera, looked through the viewfinder, the window, the light, the dust dancing. He pressed the shutter. Click. His first photograph. His grandmother didn't tell him it would be out of focus. That he'd forgotten to adjust the settings. That the exposure would be wrong. She just smiled and said, "Welcome to the art of making the invisible permanent." Tommy lowered the camera, already looking for his next shot. He was 7 years old. He didn't know yet that this moment, this decision to see the world through a lens, would lead him to a morgue at 34. Didn't know that the invisible things he'd learned to make permanent would be people who couldn't say no. Didn't know that beauty and violation could look exactly the same through a viewfinder. He was just a boy who saw light and wanted to capture it. The rest would come later. The rest always does. Chapter 2, Absence. Age 9, the funeral. Tommy's father was in the box. That's what his mother kept saying. Your father's in the box, Tommy. Say goodbye to the box. But Tommy knew better. His father wasn't in the box. His father was gone. The box just had what was left. The funeral home smelled like flowers trying to hide something. Too sweet, too thick. Tommy stood in his too tight suit, 9 years old, staring at the closed casket. Why can't we see him? He asked. His mother's face crumpled. She'd been crying for 3 days straight. The accident. He wouldn't want you to remember him that way. But I don't remember him anyway. He was always driving, always gone. It was true. Tommy's father had been a long-haul trucker. 3 weeks on the road, 4 days home. was home. He was sleeping or getting ready to leave again. Tommy's clearest memory of his father was watching him pack. The careful ritual of it. Thermos, CB radio, atlas, photographs of Tommy and his mother taped to the dashboard. "We'll remember him from photographs," his mother said. "I have plenty." The service was short. The pastor didn't know his father well enough to say anything specific, just platitudes. Good man, hard worker, loved his family. Did he? Tommy wondered. How could you love people you barely saw? After, at the house, relatives ate casseroles and told stories Tommy had never heard. Remember when Michael drove straight through a tornado? Remember when he rescued that family broken down on I-40? Remember when Tommy stopped listening. These weren't his memories. This wasn't his father. This was a stranger being mourned by people who'd known him better than his own son had. His grandmother found him in his room, looking at the photographs his mother had put out. His father smiling, his father young, his father holding baby Tommy. All lies, Tommy thought. Not because they weren't real, but because they told a story that wasn't complete. "It's hard," his grandmother said, sitting on the bed. "Losing someone you never got to know." "I'm not sad," Tommy said. It came out defensive. "That's okay, too. Mom's crying all the time. Everyone's crying. But I just feel nothing." His grandmother pulled him close. She smelled like lavender and safety. "Grief is different for everyone. You're allowed to feel however you feel. But what if I forget him completely? What if the pictures are all I have and they're not even real? What makes you think they're not real?" Tommy gestured to the photographs. "They show him happy, but he wasn't happy. He was always leaving, always choosing the road over us." "Maybe," his grandmother said carefully, "he was choosing the road because staying was too hard. Some people don't know how to be present. They love you, but they don't know how to show it except by working, by providing. That's stupid. Yes, but it's also human." Tommy picked up one of the photographs. His father in front of his truck. Sunglasses, smile, thumbs up. "I want to remember him real," Tommy said. "Not like this, not perfect." His grandmother took the photograph, studied it. "You know what this picture doesn't show?" "What?" "That your father called every night he was on the road. Even when he was exhausted. Even when he was broke and had to use a payphone. He called to hear your voice." Tommy looked at her. "He did. Every night. Your mother would hold the phone to your ear while you slept. And he'd talk to you. Tell you about what he'd seen. The mountains, the plains, the cities. He was showing you the world, even though you couldn't see it." Tears came then, unexpected, hot. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because we thought you'd remember. We thought there'd be time. But there wasn't time. There never is." Tommy cried for the father he'd never known, for the conversations he'd slept through, for all the things that would never happen now. His grandmother held him until the crying stopped. "I want to learn more," Tommy said finally. About photography. About making things permanent. Okay. Will you teach me? Yes. Even the hard parts. The parts about truth and lies. His grandmother pulled back to look at him. Her eyes were wet too, especially those parts. They went down to her car. From the trunk, she pulled out a camera bag. This was going to be your father's, she said. I bought it for his birthday next month. He always wanted to photograph the places he visited. Never got around to it. She handed Tommy the bag. Inside was a camera, better than the ones in the attic. Professional. It's yours now. Use it to remember him. Or don't. Use it however you need to. Tommy held the camera. Heavy, real, his. That night, he took his first real photograph. His father's empty chair at the dinner table. The space where he should have been, but wasn't. When his grandmother developed it, she didn't say anything about the composition or the lighting. She just said, now that's true. Tommy kept that photograph. Kept it through high school, college, his mother's death. Kept it until the police found it in his apartment 9 years later, in a box labeled absence. At 9 years old, he'd learned that photographs could lie by omission. At 34, he'd forget that people could too. But for now, he was just a boy learning to see what wasn't there. Learning that empty spaces could be louder than filled ones. Learning that death creates a kind of silence that echoes. Chapter 3, Stillness. Age 12, the hospital. Tommy's mother worked nights at St. Mary's Hospital. Nurse. Graveyard shift. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 days a week. Usually, she found a babysitter for Tommy. But tonight, the sitter canceled, and Tommy's mother couldn't afford to miss a shift. You're 12, she said, exhausted. Old enough. Stay in the break room. Do your homework. Don't bother anyone. So Tommy sat in the break room on the 4th floor, textbooks spread out, trying to focus on algebra. But the hospital at night was its own world. The fluorescent lights hummed a frequency he felt in his teeth. The air conditioning cycled like mechanical breathing. And through the walls, he heard things. Monitors beeping. People crying. Nurses speaking in low, urgent voices. Around 2 a.m., he gave up on homework. Wandered the halls with his camera, his father's camera. He still thought of it that way. The hospital was beautiful at night. Empty corridors, shadows, the green glow of exit signs. He photographed it all. The waiting room with its scattered magazines. The vending machine humming to itself. A wheelchair folded in a corner. What are you doing? Tommy turned. A doctor stood there. Young, maybe 30, tired eyes. Taking pictures. My mom works here. I'm not supposed to leave the break room. But you did anyway. I got bored. The doctor smiled. Tired, but genuine. What are you photographing? The quiet parts. The parts people don't see. Can I see? Tommy hesitated, then handed over his camera. The doctor scrolled through the images on the small LCD screen. These are good. You have an eye for composition. Thanks. I'm Dr. Patterson. Emergency medicine. You. Tommy Henderson. Well, Tommy Henderson. Want to see something really interesting? Okay. Dr. Patterson led him through the maze of hallways. Down to the basement. The morgue. Tommy had never seen a morgue before. It was smaller than he expected. Cleaner. Just a room with steel drawers in the wall and a prep table in the center. This is where people come when the emergency is over, Dr. Patterson said. When there's nothing left to do but wait for family. It's quiet, Tommy said. Yes, the quietest place in the hospital. Dr. Patterson pulled open one of the drawers. Empty, thank God. Just steel and cold. This is the end of the story, he said. Every patient I see upstairs is trying not to end up down here. But they all do, eventually. Why are you showing me this? Dr. Patterson closed the drawer. Because you're photographing emptiness, absence, the spaces between. This is the ultimate empty space, and I thought you should see it. Tommy raised his camera, pointed it at the drawers, the prep table, the drain in the floor. Click, click, click. Through the viewfinder, it wasn't scary. It was just another room. Clean lines, interesting light. How do you deal with it? Tommy asked. Knowing everyone ends up here. I don't think about it that way. I think about the time before here. The moments when they're still fighting, still alive. That's what matters. But this is what's real. This is what's true. Dr. Patterson looked at him carefully. You're 12, and you already sound like a philosophy student. My grandmother says photographs are about truth and lies. Smart grandmother, what do you think? Tommy lowered his camera, looked around the morgue. I think this room is honest. It doesn't pretend. It just is. And that's appealing to you. Yeah, everything else is pretending. School pretends to matter. People pretend to care. But this, he gestured to the drawers, this doesn't pretend anything. Dr. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Then, can I tell you something? Okay. This honesty you're looking for, be careful with it. Sometimes the truth is too much. Sometimes people need the lie, the pretending, the hope. Why? Because hope is what keeps them fighting. And without the fight, they end up here sooner. Tommy thought about that. About his mother pretending his father had been happy. About the photographs that showed smiles, but not sadness. Is it better to lie then? It's better to be kind. And sometimes kindness looks like truth. Sometimes it looks like lies. You have to figure out which is which. They stood in the quiet morgue, doctor and boy, both thinking about endings. Finally, Dr. Patterson said, "Come on. I'll walk you back to the break room before your mother finds out you escaped." As they left, Tommy took one last photograph. The morgue door closing, light narrowing, darkness winning. He didn't know then that he'd spend years of his life in rooms like this one. Didn't know that he'd come to prefer the company of the dead to the living. Didn't know that the The stillness he found appealing at 12 would become an obsession at 34. He was just a boy who discovered a room where nothing pretended, where everything was exactly what it appeared to be, where the truth was simple, everyone ends here. He'd spend the next 22 years forgetting Dr. Patterson's warning about kindness, about lies, about the difference between honesty and cruelty. But for now, he just followed the doctor back upstairs, camera in hand, images of emptiness stored on film. His mother never knew he'd left the break room, never knew he'd found the place he'd eventually call home. Chapter 4, Framing. Age 15, high school photography class. The darkroom at Lincoln High School was Tommy's sanctuary. Red light, chemical smell, the magic of images appearing on blank paper, slowly, like ghosts becoming solid. His teacher, Mr. Kowalski, was old school. Film only, no digital. If you can't do it in analog, you don't understand it, he'd say. Tommy understood it. He spent lunch periods in the darkroom. After school, weekends when Mr. Kowalski let him in, developing, printing, perfecting. His classmates photographed each other. Parties, sports, the things teenagers think matter. Tommy photographed empty spaces, abandoned buildings, closed stores, the nowhere places that cities try to hide. Why don't you photograph people? His girlfriend Ashley asked. She was in the class too, always shooting portraits, always capturing smiles. People lie, Tommy said. Buildings don't. Buildings aren't alive. Exactly. She didn't understand. No one did, except maybe Mr. Kowalski. You have a gift, the teacher told him, examining Tommy's latest series. An abandoned factory, windows broken, nature reclaiming the space. But it's a cold gift, clinical. Is that bad? It's limiting. Art needs warmth, humanity, connection. I connect to this. Mr. Kowalski put down the photographs. Do you? Or are you just avoiding connection with things that can hurt you? Tommy didn't answer, because the answer was yes. After his father's death, his mother's increasing distance, the slow realization that everyone leaves eventually, Tommy had learned to prefer subjects that couldn't disappoint him. There's an assignment, Mr. Kowalski said, portrait series. 5 people, 5 different emotions, due in 2 weeks. Can I do it differently? Tell portraits of absence, where people should be but aren't. Mr. Kowalski considered it. That's still avoiding the assignment, but it's true to what I see. Fine, but I want a written statement with it, explaining your artistic vision. Why absence instead of presence? Tommy spent 2 weeks on the project. Photographed his father's chair, still empty at the table. His mother's bed, sheets pulled back, but no one there. Ashley's locker at school open, coat hanging, but Ashley somewhere else. Each photograph was technically perfect. Composition, lighting, story. The written statement was harder. Portraits are lies because they show people as frozen moments. happy or sad, caught mid-expression, pretending to be something permanent. But people aren't permanent. They leave, they die, they disappoint. So I photograph what remains after they're gone, the spaces they occupied, the absence they leave. This is more honest than any smile. He got an A. Ashley broke up with him. You're creepy, she said. You photographed my stuff without asking. That's a violation. I didn't photograph you. You photographed my space, my privacy, without permission. What's wrong with you? Tommy didn't understand. He hadn't violated anything. Had he? Mr. Kowalski called him in after school. Ashley's parents complained, said you're stalking her. I'm not. It was just an assignment. That included her personal locker. She knew I was a photographer. She should have expected. No, Tommy. Mr. Kowalski's voice was sharp. People don't expect to be subjects. You ask, you get permission, you respect boundaries. But I didn't photograph her. You photographed her space without asking. That's still a violation of privacy. There was that word again, violation. Tommy didn't feel like he'd violated anything. He'd just documented truth. I want you to think about consent, Mr. Kowalski continued. In photography, in art, in life. Just because you can take a picture doesn't mean you should. Just because something is visible doesn't mean it's yours to capture. But how do you capture honest moments if people know you're watching? They'll pose. They'll lie. Then maybe honest moments aren't yours to capture. Maybe some things should stay private. Tommy left the classroom confused, angry. He'd done exactly what Mr. Kowalski asked, made art, told truth, and now he was being punished for it. That night, he developed the one photograph he hadn't shown the class. Ashley sleeping in study hall, head on desk, vulnerable, unaware. He'd taken it weeks ago, before the assignment, before the breakup. Looking at it now, in the red darkroom light, he saw what Mr. Kowalski meant. This was beautiful, Ashley unguarded, real, honest, and completely unethical. She hadn't known, hadn't consented, hadn't chosen to be captured. Tommy should have destroyed the negative, should have torn up the print. Instead, he put it in his portfolio. Hidden, private. A secret violation, he told himself, didn't count because no one would see it. The first of many rationalizations. The first time he chose his vision over someone else's privacy. At 15, it felt like artistic integrity. At 34, it would be evidence. But he didn't know that yet. He just knew that the photograph was beautiful. And beauty, he was learning, could justify anything, if you wanted it to. Chapter 5, Composition. Age 18, Community College. Professor Diane Chen taught Introduction to Photography at the community college. She was 40, Chinese American, with silver in her black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Tommy registered for her class, his first semester. The only class he cared about. Everything else, English, math, general ED requirements, was just noise. Professor Chen lectured on the first day about seeing. Photography is not about cameras. It's about vision. What you choose to frame, what you exclude, the story you decide to tell. She showed slides. Dorothea Lange, Walker Evans, Diane Arbus. These photographers showed us truth, she said. But whose truth? The subjects, their own, the viewers. All three, someone said. None of the above, Professor Chen corrected. Photography shows us the photographer's truth, what they want us to see. Everything else is invisible. Tommy leaned forward. Finally, someone who understood. After class, he approached her with his portfolio. 4 years of work, emptiness, absence, spaces between things. Professor Chen went through it slowly, methodically, no expression. Finally, she looked up. You're talented. Thank you. And you're hiding. Tommy blinked. What? This work is technically proficient, compositionally strong, and emotionally vacant. It's about absence. It's supposed to be vacant. No, absence should evoke feeling, loss, longing, grief. Your work evokes nothing. It's aesthetically pleasing emptiness. Pretty, but hollow. Tommy felt his face flush. You don't understand what I'm trying to. I understand perfectly. You're trying to make art without vulnerability. Document the world without participating in it. Stay behind the lens where it's safe. That's not. When was the last time you photographed something that scared you? That made you feel something you didn't want to feel. Tommy didn't answer. That's what I thought. Professor Chen handed back the portfolio. You have a gift, but gifts mean nothing if you're afraid to use them fully. I'm not afraid. Then prove it. Next assignment. Photograph something that matters to you. Not aesthetically, emotionally. Something you care about enough to risk being vulnerable. Tommy hated her for seeing through him, for calling him out, for being right. He spent 2 weeks avoiding the assignment, photographing buildings, empty parks, safe subjects. But Professor Chen wouldn't accept them. These are technically perfect and emotionally dishonest. Try again. I don't know what you want. I want you to stop hiding. Tommy went home angry, threw his camera bag across his room. His mother was there. She'd been there a lot lately. Too much. Since Tommy started college, she'd stopped picking up shifts, stopped going out, just sat in the house, staring at nothing. You okay? She asked. Professor hates my work. I'm sure that's not true. She wants me to photograph something that matters, something vulnerable. His mother smiled, sad, tired. Photograph me. What? I matter to you, don't I? And God knows I'm vulnerable enough. Tommy looked at her, really looked. His mother was 46. Look 60. The night shifts had worn her down, and since she'd stopped working, she'd gotten worse. Thinner, grayer, disappearing. Are you sick? Tommy asked suddenly. Not sick, just tired. Mom, photograph me before I'm gone completely. So he did. Over the next week, Tommy photographed his mother. Not posed, not performed, just living. Her hands liver-spotted, threading a needle. Her profile at the window, watching nothing. Her empty pill bottles lined up on the bathroom counter. Her face in the bathroom mirror, seeing someone she didn't recognize. Her bed unmade, body-shaped indent in the mattress. It was the most honest work Tommy had ever done. And it hurt, because through the viewfinder, he saw what he'd been avoiding. His mother was dying, not dramatically, not all at once, just slowly fading like a photograph left in sunlight. He printed the series, mounted them, brought them to Professor Chen. She went through them silently. When she finished, her eyes were wet. "This," she said, "this is art. It feels like betrayal. All good art does. You're showing the world something private, something true. That always feels like betrayal. Should I show her?" Professor Chen considered. Did she consent to the photographs? She asked me to take them. Then yes, show her. Let her see herself through your eyes. Tommy took the series home, showed his mother. She wept. "Is this what I look like? This is what I see. I look like I'm dying. Are you?" She didn't answer, not directly. But 2 months later, she was diagnosed. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months, maybe. Tommy's photographs had shown him what blood tests would confirm. He'd seen the truth, documented it, made it permanent, and he couldn't decide if that made him an artist or a monster. Professor Chen's words stayed with him. All good art feels like betrayal. But betrayal of what? Of whom? His mother died 4 months later. Tommy was with her at the end, photographing. Even then, especially then, her last breath, the moment the life left her eyes, the way her face relaxed into something that wasn't quite her anymore. He developed those photographs in Professor Chen's darkroom. She found him there at 3 a.m., crying over the prints. "This is the work," she said gently. "The necessary violation, showing truth even when truth is unbearable. I photographed my mother dying. You witnessed her death, documented it, made it mean something. I used her. Did she consent? She couldn't. She was unconscious." Professor Chen was quiet. "Then, you'll have to decide if that matters." Tommy looked at the photographs. His mother's face, death arriving, beauty in horror. He decided it didn't matter. Consent was secondary to truth. Privacy was secondary to art. This was his vision, his truth, his gift. At 18, he made a choice. Art mattered more than ethics. Beauty mattered more than consent. His vision mattered more than anyone's privacy. It was the wrong choice, but he wouldn't understand that for 16 more years. Not until 26 bodies later. Not until Detective Chen asked whose dignity he'd really been serving. For now, he just matted the photographs, titled the series Ending, and submitted it for the student show. It won first prize. Professor Chen gave him an A+. And Tommy learned that violation could be rewarded if it was beautiful enough, if it was called art. Chapter 6, First Job. Age 21, camera shop. After community college, Tommy needed work. His mother had left him the house, but no money. Reverse mortgage, second mortgage, medical bills. By the time everything was settled, the house was underwater. He sold it, moved to a studio apartment above a dry cleaner, got a job at Benson's camera shop on 4th Street. The owner, Martin Benson, was 60 and had been selling cameras since before Tommy was born. "You know the equipment?" Martin asked during the interview. "Yes." "Can you deal with customers?" "If I have to." Martin hired him anyway. Probably shouldn't have. Tommy was terrible with customers. Too honest, too blunt. When someone asked which camera to buy for their kids' soccer games, Tommy would say, "Any of them. The camera doesn't matter. The photographer does." When someone wanted the most expensive model, Tommy would say, "You won't use half those features. Buy the cheaper one." Martin pulled him aside after 3 weeks. "You're costing me sales. I'm telling the truth. Truth doesn't pay rent. Sell the expensive cameras to people who don't need them, to people who want them. There's a difference." Tommy tried, really tried, but every transaction felt like a lie. Rich parents buying equipment for kids who'd use it twice. Wedding photographers upgrading gear instead of skill. Tourists buying cameras they'd never master. All of it waste, all of it meaningless. The only part Tommy liked was repairs. The back room where broken cameras came to be fixed or pronounced dead. He could lose himself there, taking apart mechanisms, understanding how light became image, the beautiful machinery of seeing. One afternoon, a woman brought in a camera. Old, film, expensive when it was new 40 years ago. "Is this fixable?" she asked. Tommy examined it. The shutter was stuck, the meter broken. The lens had fungus growing inside. Probably not worth it. This would cost more to repair than to replace. "I don't want to replace it. It was my husband's. He died." Tommy looked up. The woman was 70 maybe, composed, grief worn smooth by time. When? 3 years ago. He was a photographer, professional. This was his favorite camera. What did he photograph? Weddings, mostly. Some portraits. He said every picture told a story. Tommy carefully disassembled the camera. There's a roll of film still inside. Is it salvageable? Maybe. Depends how long it's been in here. 3 years since his heart attack. He was loading it when it happened. Tommy worked carefully, removed the film in the darkroom, developed it in the tank. Half the roll was blank, but the last few frames had images. A wedding, the bride laughing, the groom crying happy tears, guests dancing, joy everywhere. The woman came back a week later for the prince. When she saw them, she wept. This was his last job. I never knew if he'd finished, if he'd gotten the shots. She paid Tommy double what he asked, left smiling through tears. Martin heard about it. That's how you sell, he said. Connection, story, making it mean something. But Tommy had learned a different lesson. People wanted photographs of the dead, needed them, would pay anything for one last image of someone gone. The idea planted itself in his mind. Small, quiet. What if there was a business in that? Photographing the dead, not crime scenes or forensics. Something else, something beautiful. He started researching, found a history of post-mortem photography. Victorians posed their dead like they were sleeping. Families treasured these photographs, last memories, final portraits. It used to be normal, accepted, before death became hidden away in hospitals and funeral homes. What if he brought it back? He mentioned it to Martin. I'm thinking about specialized photography, post-mortem portraits. Martin stared at him. You want to photograph corpses, respectfully, artistically, give families something beautiful to remember. That's the creepiest thing I've ever heard. But there's a market for it. People want. No, Tommy, that's not a business. That's a therapy issue. Tommy dropped it outwardly, but the idea remained, growing. He started visiting funeral homes, talking to directors, asking about photography services. Most threw him out. One, Fairview Memorial Services, listened. The director, Marcus Reeves, was ex-military, practical, unsentimental. We don't do post-mortem photography, Marcus said. Liability issues, consent issues, ethics. But families want memories. They want to remember their loved ones alive, not dead. Then why have viewings? Marcus considered. Because seeing the body helps with closure, acceptance. But that's different from photographs. You can't unsee a photograph. Exactly. That's the power, permanent, forever. Marcus studied Tommy. You're either visionary or disturbed. Can't tell which. Does it matter? Yes, very much. Marcus didn't hire him for photography. But 2 months later, the night porter quit. Marcus called Tommy. You still want to work with the dead. In what capacity? Not photography, porter work. Intake, cleaning, moving bodies. It's minimum wage, night shift, lonely work. When do I start? Tommy gave notice at the camera shop. Martin wasn't surprised. You're chasing something dark, Martin said. Be careful it doesn't catch you. It's just a job. No, for you, it's never just anything. Tommy started at Fairview Memorial Services the following Monday, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights a week. His first night, Marcus showed him the morgue, the same cold room he'd seen at 12 in the hospital. But now he had access, permission, authority. Rules, Marcus said. Respect the deceased. Respect the families. Never, ever photograph without explicit permission. Understood. Understood. I mean it, Tommy. This isn't art school. These are people, grieving families, sacred moments. I get it. Do you? because I've seen your portfolio. Professor Chen showed me. Your mother's death series. That's powerful work. Also ethically questionable. She consented. Did she when she was conscious? Or did you decide unconscious was close enough? Tommy didn't answer. I'm watching you, Marcus said. One violation, one complaint, one inappropriate photograph, you're gone. Clear. Clear. Marcus left him alone in the morgue. Tommy stood in the silence. The fluorescent hum, the chemical smell, the steel drawers. This was it. This was home. He pulled out his camera, not to photograph, just to hold, to remember Professor Chen's words. All good art feels like betrayal, to feel the weight of choice, ethics or aesthetics, consent or vision. He put the camera away. For now, he'd been good, he'd wait, he'd follow the rules. For now, but the hunger was there, growing, the need to document, to make permanent, to create beauty from death. It was just a matter of time, and subjects who couldn't say no. Chapter 7, Threshold. Age 27, first violation. For 6 years, Tommy worked at Fairview Memorial Services. For 6 years, he followed the rules, never photographed bodies without permission, never violated privacy, never crossed the line. He was the model employee, reliable, professional, trusted. Marcus promoted him. Better hours, better pay, more responsibility. Tommy was good at the work. The careful moving of bodies, the respectful preparation, the quiet competence that grieving families needed. He even stopped bringing his camera to work, locked it in his car, out of temptation's reach. For 6 years, until Jane Doe 2019-0417. She arrived on a Tuesday morning. No ID, no family, no one coming. Found in Lincoln Park. Apparent overdose. The police didn't investigate much. One more homeless addict, one more unclaimed body. She was scheduled for cremation. Potter's Field burial. The state would pay. No service, no viewing, no ceremony. She'd be ash and a number in a database. No one would see her. No one would remember her. No one would know she'd been beautiful once. Because she had been. Tommy could see it through the damage. Delicate hands, artist's fingers, a face that told stories. She was 30, maybe younger. Hard to tell after life on the streets. Marcus processed her, logged her, scheduled the cremation. Another Jane Doe, he said, sad. Happens more than you'd think. People falling through cracks. Does anyone come for them? Ever? Sometimes, not usually. We hold them as long as legally required. Then cremation. How long? 2 weeks. Tommy helped Marcus move Jane Doe to drawer 4. Slid her in. Closed the door. That should have been it. 2 weeks cremation. Gone. But Tommy couldn't stop thinking about her. About the waste of it. A life reduced to ash without witness. Beauty erased without record. It seemed wrong. No, it was wrong. Someone should see her. Someone should remember. Someone should document that she'd existed. The thoughts spiraled for 3 days. Then one night, alone in the morgue, 3 a.m. No one around, Tommy made a choice. He brought in a white dress from Goodwill. Simple, modest, pretty. He took Jane Doe from drawer 4 to the viewing room. He dressed her, gently, respectfully, positioned her by the window where dawn light would break through, went to his car, got his camera, set up the shot, natural light, long exposure, composition perfect. Through the viewfinder, she was transformed. Not a Jane Doe, not an addict, not a statistic. Alice, he decided. She looked like an Alice. Beautiful, serene, at peace. The shutter clicked. 15 frames, different angles, different light. When dawn came, he stopped. Put Alice back in the dress she'd arrived in. Returned her to drawer 4. Cleaned the viewing room. Removed every trace. No one would know. It would be his secret, his art, his violation. For 3 weeks, he told himself he'd delete the images. They sat on his camera's memory card, unviewed, Schrodinger's crime. If he didn't look at them, if he didn't develop them, if he didn't acknowledge them, did they exist? Did the violation count? Finally, curiosity won. He developed the film. The photographs were perfect. Alice waiting, Alice serene, Alice visible. He uploaded one to his portfolio site. Private, password protected, just to see how it looked. By morning, he had 17 inquiries. Who is your model? Is she available for more shoots? Can I purchase a print? One inquiry was from Helena Marsh, gallery owner. This is stunning. I'd like to purchase this piece. $3,000, let me know. $3,000 for one photograph, one secret violation, one woman who couldn't say no. Tommy stared at the offer. He could delete it, refuse, confess to Marcus, take his punishment, or he could accept, sell, let Alice be seen, give her permanence, memory, meaning. Wasn't that better than ash? Better than nothing? Wasn't he doing her a service? He clicked accept. Helena Marsh sent payment the next day. Picked up the print that weekend. Who is she? Helena asked. A model, private work. Can you get her for more sessions? She's unavailable. Pity, she has an incredible stillness. Patience, you titled it. Yes. Perfect. I have a buyer already. They'll pay $5,000. $5,000. For Alice. For violation called art. Tommy took the money. Told himself it was a one-time thing. Told himself Alice was special. Unclaimed. No one would miss her. No one would know. Told himself he'd honored her. Given her beauty. Made her matter. All lies. But lies that felt like truth. Because the photograph was beautiful. And beauty, Tommy had learned, could justify anything. The threshold had been crossed. The rule broken. The line erased. After Alice, there was Benjamin. Then Catherine, then Daniel. Each one easier than the last. Each justification smoother. each violation more routine. By the time he reached Zachary, Catherine's husband, the wedding ring that would end everything, Tommy had forgotten there was ever a line at all, had convinced himself his vision was service. His art was tribute. His violations were gifts. At 27, he made the choice. Beauty over ethics. Art over consent. Vision over humanity. It took 7 years to catch him. 7 years and 26 bodies. 7 years of violations called tribute. By then, Tommy couldn't even remember why the rules had mattered. Couldn't remember Marcus's warning. One violation, one complaint, one inappropriate photograph, you're gone. Couldn't remember Dr. Patterson at 12. Be careful with truth. Sometimes people need the lie, the pretending, the hope. Couldn't remember Mr. Kowalski at 15. Just because you can take a picture doesn't mean you should. Couldn't remember Professor Chen at 18. All good art feels like betrayal. He'd turned all the warnings into permissions, all the cautions into confirmations, all the ethics into aesthetics. At 27, with Jane Doe 2019-0417, with Alice, Tommy Henderson stopped being a photographer who worked in a morgue and became something else entirely. A predator who hunted the defenseless, a thief who stole from the silent, a violator who called it art. He just didn't know it yet, wouldn't know it for 7 more years. Not until Detective Chen showed him the wedding ring. Not until the families testified. Not until the judge said, dignity requires agency. For now, he was just a photographer who'd sold one beautiful image. For now, it felt like success. For now, the violation felt like vision. The rest would come later. The rest always does. Epilogue before Alice. 6 months before Jane Doe, 2019-0417. Tommy Henderson sat in his apartment, scrolling through his portfolio. 6 years of work, all legitimate, all ethical, all with consent. Portraits of willing subjects, landscapes, urban photography. Good work, technically proficient, emotionally honest, but not great, not transcendent, not the work he saw in his mind when he closed his eyes. Professor Chen had been right. He was hiding, playing it safe. The best work required vulnerability, risk, violation. His mother's death series, that had been great, because he hadn't played safe, hadn't asked permission when she couldn't give it. That's where the power came from crossing lines. His phone rang. Marcus, can you cover tonight? David called in sick. Sure, thanks. Also, we've got 2 Jane Does this week. Cities seeing a spike in overdoses, probably fentanyl. How long are we holding them? Standard 2 weeks. No one's claimed the first one. Doubt anyone will claim the second. Marcus hung up. Tommy sat with that information. 2 Jane Does, unclaimed, invisible. 2 women who died twice, once in body, once in memory. Unless someone documented them. Unless someone saw them. Unless someone gave them permanence. His hand moved to his camera bag. The good camera. The one he never brought to work anymore. He could bring it tonight, just to have it, just in case. Not to use, just to have the option. He packed it, drove to Fairview Memorial Services, parked in his usual spot, sat in the car, camera bag on the passenger seat. Marcus's warning echoed. One violation and you're gone. Professor Chen's lesson whispered. All good art feels like betrayal. His grandmother's philosophy hummed. Beauty that no one sees is still beauty. Tommy picked up the camera bag. Tomorrow, Jane Doe 2019-0417 would arrive. Tomorrow, Alice would come. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, Tommy just carried his camera into work, ready for the moment when ethics became optional, when art became everything, when the dead became subjects who couldn't say no. The education of his eye was complete. Now came the execution and the reckoning that would follow. End of part 0. The education of an eye. Continued in The Alphabet of the Afterlife, Part 1.